Hello, and welcome to the Overcoming Challenges in the Four Phases of Life interview series. I'm Chris Powell. Today, we are honored to speak with author, speaker, and founder of Rich Habits, Mr. Tom Corley. Tom Corley has nearly 20 years of experience covering how the wealthy spend their time. We have a extensive interview that I'm sure you're about to enjoy. So thank you again for watching our broadcast. We hope you
Hey,
enjoy.
Chris, I'm doing great. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I have followed your work for many years, and I must be honest, I'm such a fan of yours, and you have truly inspired me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Chris. There's really three things I'd like to cover here, like the financial life, your mindset, which is sort of your mental life, and then your relationship life, right? So a lot of people focus single-mindedly on, they want to be wealthy, they want to be rich, so their financial life might be their priority. So one of the things I'll say, unless you're an entrepreneur or a big company climber, and you're trying to reach the high ranks in a corporation, or you're pursuing a dream as an entrepreneur, most everybody else has a job. They work for somebody. So if you're one of those people and you want to improve your financial life, my suggestion to you, and this is what the Saver Investor Millionaires in my Rich Habits study did, is they consistently saved 20% or more of their net income, and then they consistently and prudently invested it. So they might save 20% of a paycheck, and maybe they have $400 of savings in a month, and they would consistently and prudently invest that $400 into something. Most of the time it was mutual funds, exchange traded funds, equities, you name it, any number of things. So that's one thing you could do to improve your financial life. Now, if you say, I don't have any savings, then one of the tricks that some of the self-made millionaires who were the saver investors in my study employed was they became frugal out of necessity. So they watched what they ate. They watched how they spent their money. They when they went out to restaurants, they went to BYOBs, bring your own beer kind of restaurants. They were very frugal, not cheap, Chris, but frugal with their spending, and that gave them a little bit more wiggle room, and maybe helped them, save an extra $100 or $200. Now, the mindset. This is so important. I'm going to say this, and I want everybody to really hear me. I want you to hear me. You will not succeed in life unless you have a positive mental outlook. You have to have an upbeat, optimistic, positive, loving outlook in life. You have to live in love and look at everybody that you meet as somebody that you want to help in life. Your mission should be service to others. That's a lot of the self-made millionaires in my study were service to others rather than service to self, which is negative. I kind of look at it as almost evil. So the mindset that you have to have is a positive mindset. Now, the gateway to a positive mental outlook is gratitude. We all have crap in our life. We all do. Some have more than others. But the one thing I noticed in my self-made millionaires is they look at one of the self-made millionaires told me the way he stays positive is he looks back on yesterday and he says, what three things went right yesterday? Well, my car started. That was one thing. The heat in the car worked. That was another thing. You pick these little things, but when you are looking at the glass half full rather than always the glass half empty, I don't have this, I don't have that. Instead, look at what you do have. Well, it changes your mindset from negative to positive. Now, relationship life, if you want to improve your relationship life, well, you need to surround yourself with other upbeat, positive individuals who are, maybe success oriented. They want to, they're achievers, or they're trying to achieve something, and their inner circle is composed of the same types of people. So, these are three facets of your life: your financial life, your mindset life, and your relationship life. These are kind of just some ideas I want to give you on those three facets, which are really important facets.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Those are just awesome pieces of advice. I always, hear about you speaking about gratitude and how important that is, because you're right. I think sometimes our life is kind of rushed sometimes, and we forget about all the things that do go right in our lives. A lot of times we focus on the bad things that occur, but if you look at the good things, I believe they outweigh the bad things so much at such higher capacity than we could even imagine. So that's a great point. And financially, that makes a great sense. Make a lot of sense as far as consistently trying to put away money, even no matter how small it may be. Over time it's gonna add up. It's gonna help you along the way. So that's great pieces of advice. So your book is titled Rich Habits. Can you name a few that we all should be trying to master?
Yeah. So one of the things I'll tell you is read as if your life depended on it. Read as much as you can every day to gain knowledge, to improve your knowledge base, to learn different facts. And why is that important? Because when you learn different facts, it changes your reference points in life. When you learn something new and that you thought wasn't true, it completely changes your thinking. So read like your life depended on it, because in a way, your success in life does depend on how much you read, and learning new facts and new information. As I said, it creates new reference points, and these are important because we build memories off of our reference points in our brain. If you have no reference point, you can't build a memory off of it. So you need to start looking at books and articles, and even listening to podcasts like this, so that they can maybe shock you a little bit, and by teaching you something new, a new fact that you didn't have before, and it completely is a game changer for you. Dream set. This is something I talk a lot about. Dream setting is a process. What it really comes down to is clarity. If you don't know where you want to be, say 10 years out, then you're going to have no ability to go from point A to point B. You have to be very clear about what your point B is. And for me, it was always to be J.C. Jobs, who's a character in my book. So no matter what goes wrong in my life, I have this very clear vision of who I want to be at the end of my life. I want to be J.C. Jobs, and he carries with him all sorts of traits, all sorts of habits, a great mindset, and all these things. So I try and emulate what I think he is, that person. Now, dream setting is really simply just sitting down and writing a script of pretend you're in the future and it's 10 years from now. And I'm talking to you and having a conversation. I say, hey, Chris, it's amazing. Your life is amazing. How did you get here? Like, what did you do? So now you're out 10 years into the future, and you write down everything that you did over the past 10 years, all the goals and the dreams that came true, all the stuff that you have now that you didn't have before, all the relationships that you have now that you didn't have before. You kind of paint a picture with words about your ideal future life, and embedded in that dream setting script are all of your dreams that you need to realize. You achieve goals, you realize dreams. You realize dreams by achieving goals. Okay? So every dream, every individual dream might be composed of, say, 10 goals that you have to achieve. Achieve means action. You have to take action. And so these goals, one by one, you knock them off, and then you realize your dream. Well, that's a rung on a ladder. And now you can climb onto that rung, and now you have another rung that you're pursuing, another dream, and you build goals around that. You get on that rung, and before you know, you're climbing up your ladder. And when you're at the top, you've realized you climbed the ladder of success, and you realized all your dreams, and you're living the life that you desire. So dream setting is another one. What's your identity? How do you identify yourself? Well, as I mentioned, I identify myself as JC Jobs. That's my identity. And when you have an identity, it doesn't matter what you are right now. When you identify with someone, ideal Tom Corley or ideal Chris Powell, 10, 15 years out, that identity is very clear, and this is who I am, even though I'm not that person now. Well, guess what happens, Chris? You start changing your behavior, you start changing your thinking, you do the things you need to do that are consistent with that identity. And so I do all of these things that I believe JC Jobs would do. I make decisions. Sometimes, Chris, I have a really important decision to make, and I'll say, how would JC Jobs, what decision would he make? How would he decide this? And so I always come up with usually the right decision because I do that. So that's another one, your identity. Experimentation. Experiment with new skills. Take 3 months, and every 3 months, try something new. Here's why. Because we all have innate talents. They're inborn talents that we have. They're hardwired into our DNA. So when you experiment, you might stumble upon some skill that just comes easier for Chris Powell than it does for everybody else. Like my family members, a couple of them, they know how to play the piano. I couldn't play the piano, Chris, if my life depended on it. Now, they picked it up easily. Boom, 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 right away. They're playing the piano, and it's like, wow. I would have to spend years and years and years of hard practice in order to get anywhere decent. Well, they have this innate talent, this music talent that they just inherited from my mother. I didn't. I inherited sports and athletics from my dad, but I didn't inherit that from my mom. So you only find out about your innate talents when you experiment, and you have to, if you do every 3 months something new, what'll happen is you're gonna probably, like 9 times out of 10, say, you won't be enthusiastic about it, but 1 out of 10 times you're gonna hit onto something. You say, wow, I love doing this. And you know why you love it? Because it's so easy for you to do. And so that's the brain's way of telling you, hey, you just stumbled on an innate talent, and the brain's telling you through enthusiasm, passion, it boosts up your dopamine level a little bit, and it gets you excited. So those are kind of like some of the important rich habits I would tell your audience is, just try and do your best. But one of them, just take one of them. That's all.
Exactly. I love that the piece about experimentation and just trying new things. A lot of things that I've been able to find out is just to experiment. It's the aha moment. Okay, I didn't know this. I didn't know I was good at this, and now you know. So it's good to try new things and to see where you are, because that's the only way you're gonna grow. As you mentioned.
Right. Right.
But why did you decide to do your research on the wealthy, and what did you hope to gain?
Well, I really, what lit a fire under my butt was I had a client back in 2004, a business client, who was basically going on the verge of bankruptcy, and he came to me crying, and he said, "What do your successful clients do that I'm not doing? What am I doing wrong?" And I spent a lot of time with this client trying to understand what he was doing wrong. And when clients come to me as a CPA, they're usually already successful. They have some level of success. They can afford to pay a CPA, so they have some level of success. So I don't know what their journey was. So that's what I was missing, Chris. I didn't know what the journey was. How could you answer what's right, the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do when you have no idea because you don't know what the journey was? So I said, I've got to go on a journey. And that journey was to really answer two questions. One was, why are some people rich and some people poor? That was the first question. The second question was, what do rich people do every single day from the minute that they put their feet on the floor in the morning to the minute they put their head on the pillow? And the other thing I wanted to know is, what do poor people do every day? Because if I could understand what the rich and the poor are doing every day and then compare it, right? Then I might be able, because I'm a CPA and I'm good with being, analytics and analyzing data. And I said, I could create an Excel worksheet on this stuff. And I did. And I came up with almost 366 data points that separate the rich from the poor. I don't think there's anyone, honestly, in the world that has the data that I have, because most people just focus on, most of the data out there is on rich people, right? Everybody wants to know how to be rich. But you know what, Chris? It's important to know what to do, but it's equally important to know what not to do. Because that not knowing what not to do can eliminate some mistakes and just the problems that you create in your life through mistakes and just not knowing what you're doing. I learned all of that from the rich and the poor people. I now know exactly what rich people do every day, and I now know what poor people do every day, and I know what the rich people are doing that makes them rich, and I know what the poor people are doing that makes them poor. And so that was really the reason I pursued this research, and then I ended up writing a book when I finished analyzing all the data, because I was doing these things, I call them learning sessions. I could fit about 12 people in my conference room in my office. So I had about 12 people that would show up once a week, and they did this for about a year. So I had about maybe 30 of these things. And some of the people in these learning sessions, I was basically teaching the rich habits, and they had enormous success. They doubled their income. And so a couple of them came up to me and said, you got to write a book on this stuff. The good people, the people that care about other people. You got to write a book on this stuff. You got to teach this because, this is important stuff. And I said, well, I don't know how to write a book. I know how to balance a balance sheet. I know how to figure out a P&L, statement of cash flow. I know how to do tax returns. I don't know how to write a book. Well, you know what I thought to myself, Chris? I said, after I gave it some time, and that sunk in, because people plant seeds sometimes and they germinate, take time to germinate. Well, this is one of those instances. Well, it started germinating in my head, and I had this little voice in my head that said, do you honestly think writing a book is harder than studying for the CPA exam? And that voice went in my head, and I said, no friggin' way. There is no way writing a book is even remotely as hard as studying for the CPA exam. And I will tell you this, Chris, it's about 10% as difficult. And so once I got that artificial barrier removed, I then went out and I bought 3 or 4 books on how to write a book, studied those books. It took me about 6 months, but I learned everything I needed to know about writing a book. And then I just wrote a manuscript, and I went to, I think 100, and I sent my a query letter to 143 literary agents that were in the self-improvement space, and 143 of them turned me down. I then went to 124 publishers directly, which you're never supposed to do, especially as a first-time author, and they all turned me down. So I ended up self-publishing Rich Habits, and I've sold 400,000 copies of it. It was a bestseller on Amazon. At one time, it was number 7 on Amazon in all books in the United States for like a week, and it was in the top 100 in all books in all genres. Didn't matter. I was in the number 7, number 8, number 10. I went for a month, and boy, did I sell thousands and thousands of books. So you never know This is the thing why you got to pursue your dreams, because you just never know, Chris. You never know.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of reading the book, 3 or 4 times because I was just every time I picked it up, I just learned something new. It didn't matter if I read it twice, 3 times. Every time I read it again, I learned something new. So it was so, it's such a valuable book for me. And I know, as you mentioned, touching over 100 million people in 27 countries. That's amazing, amazing piece of work. Again, I personally thank you, for your work, and thank you that you're doing, and you're gone. So, but you know, a lot of people have problems seeing opportunities. Um, no matter what kind of situation our listeners may be in, how can they change their thinking?
Okay, so here's an interesting thing that I found in my brain research. This is the thing that these are rabbit holes that my rich habits took me down, and one of them was neurological research, brain science, I guess you will. Um, and one of the interesting things I discovered was there's something in the brain called the thalamus, and connected to it is something called the reticular activating system. It's like a gate, Chris, right? So that gate pretty much stays shut unless there's something important that the reticular activating system thinks the brain needs to consciously be aware of. Now, the thalamus is connected through all these nerve fibers to the prefrontal cortex. But when that gate is shut, that information, that external information, those opportunities never reach the prefrontal cortex, never reach your consciousness. What opens up the gate, the reticular activating system gate, and allows that information to seep into the thalamus and then go into the prefrontal cortex are things like dreams and goals. That's why dreams and goals are so important. When you pursue a dream and you have goals behind that dream, it actually toggles on the reticular activating system. And so the RAS, I call it, the reticular activating system, when it's toggled on because of your goals and your dreams, it will pick things up in the environment. And if it thinks, oh, this is related to Tom's dream or Tom's goal, it will open up the gate, let that information in. The thalamus looks at it and says, yep, this is related to the dream and goal, sends it off to the prefrontal cortex, and voila, all of a sudden you see an opportunity. You know what it's like, Chris? Like, imagine you're in an airport and there's nothing but noise because there's, hundreds and hundreds of voices, and it just sounds like noise to you. You don't hear any individual conversations going on. And then somebody says, hey, Chris, and you turn around. That's the reticular activating system gate opening up and allowing that external environmental influence to enter into the brain. It opened up because Chris is your name, and that's important to the brain. So it opened up, and so that's goals and dreams and goals. It's the same thing. It allows the reticular activating system to open up so that you can see these opportunities.
Yeah, so it sounds like you just have to have, like you said, something that's exciting that you want to explore or do that's gonna give that RAS the I guess bell to kind of let you in, or kind of just say, hey, this is important. We got things we gotta do. So, yeah, that's amazing, amazing. What moment in your life did you decide that you wanted to pivot and create something new for yourself?
Oh, it was September of 2008. I was almost done with my Rich Habits research analysis. I just finished the research and I was like halfway done with the analysis, and then I was also doing some teaching of the rich habits that I had learned. And I remember it was a profound experience that I had. Um, I was I was having trouble sleeping, and my son had just gone off to college, so his room was empty. And my wife kicked me, and she said, "Get the hell out of the room! You're waking me up." Because I still do. Keep a pad next to my desk because I get ideas, sometimes at night, and I write them down. And well, what was happening the whole entire night was I was writing stuff down. I didn't even know what I was doing. And so I went into my son's room and I took my pad with me, and the whole night I was writing stuff down, writing stuff. When I finally fell asleep and I was left alone, my brain was left to sleep. About 3 hours, I woke up and I looked at the pad, and at the top of the pad it said "Rich Habits," and then it had every single chapter of Rich Habits. Not every single one word for word, but the template for it. And I said, "What the hell is Rich Habits?" That's what I said. I said, "What the hell is Rich Habits?" That was a life-changing event in my mind. And I proceeded, I guess it was the seed that was planted about, I wasn't calling them Rich Habits back then when I was teaching it. I was calling them whatever. I didn't even know what the hell they were. I was, rich lessons, or, I didn't even know what habits were, to be honest with you, Chris. And then when that happened, I said, "Oh my God, all of this research I've been doing." So when I finished the research, sure enough, I analyzed it and I broke it down rich and poor. And I said, "Oh my God, these are mostly habits." I said, "Oh my God, where did this come from the ether?" So when I finished my research and analysis, I ended up writing Rich Habits. And I guess, the powers that be up there, I do believe we are connected. There's a super consciousness and we're connected to it. And I'm not talking about spiritual or anything. I don't believe in that stuff. I'm sorry, I don't. I believe that our brains, I know this is a fact, our brains emit electromagnetic waves, and electromagnetic waves can go through anything. And so I believe that there's, this super consciousness where everybody's electromagnetic waves are shooting out of their brains and their thoughts, or whatever you can want to call them. But I believe they're physical in the sense that they're electromagnetic. Scalar waves are also known as. So I picked something up from the ether, from that, whoever sent me that information, or maybe my own brain bounced off of something and sent it back to me. I don't know, Chris. I still don't. To this day, I have no idea how it happened. But that put me on a different path in life.
Yeah, we're so grateful because I mean it's such a, it's really big because it's just, uh, it just kind of changes how you think, like if you're, no matter where you are in your current state, okay, rich habits, okay, what do I need to do? And when you think about poor habits, okay, these are things that I shouldn't be doing, so it's clear. Do this, success. If you
Right.
do that, you're not gonna have success. And to have a book or books, as I may add, people can read this and just study, 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 like you said, from the time you study the rich um person, from the time they got up to the time they went to bed, and if anyone just follows the steps and they can grow at their own pace, but they can grow. And it's an amazing piece of work they should put together, Tom. It's awesome.
Thanks.
Um, I know we all have big goals, and big dreams, but the key is sometimes to get beyond a setback. Because
Yeah.
we all may have these ideas, but at some point we hit a little trouble. What strategies have you learned that can help us push through the challenges and continue forward?
Yeah, so there's two things I want to get, two bits of information I want to get across that are really important. Number one is when you have a clear vision of where you want to go, uh, all of the obstacles, the setbacks, and the things that get in your way are just things that you have to overcome because your eyes are set down the road. You know where you're going. It doesn't matter what's in between where you are and where you want to be. You're going to overcome all that stuff because you have a very clear vision. You know what you want. The other thing is manage your expectations. This is where a lot of so-called entrepreneurs wind up quitting on themselves because they set unrealistic expectations. My recommendation, I always write about this and I talk about it in the media, is to actually set low expectations in terms of what you want to achieve with respect to your dreams and your goals. If you set the expectations, the bar low enough, you'll hit it. And why is that important? And some people will say, oh, that's silly. That's, you're setting your goals and your dreams too low. No, here's what happens when you set them too high. It creates a negative emotion when you fail to meet those expectations. And if you continuously set unrealistic expectations and fail to meet them, you're going to raise the white flag and say, I quit. This is too hard for me. I'm not able to achieve what I expected I would achieve. Well, that's because your expectations were too high. Lower your expectations, make them realistic. I'm not saying set them really low, but set them realistic. I can tell you because I've done so many business plans for, clients in my life. And one of the rules I always tell them is, I call it the rule of three. I said, your revenue is going to be 1/3 of what you expect. And your expenses are going to be 3 times as much as you expect. And it's going to take you 3 times as long as you expect. So realign your expectations. Now, the ones that do that, they stick it out. That's called persistence. You hear about persistence. That's such an important trait as an entrepreneur. Well, the reason they have persistence, Chris, and they never quit, is because they're managing their expectations all along the way. They don't get caught up in the emotional, because entrepreneur is a roller coaster ride. You go up and down. It's just naturally is going to be a roller coaster ride. What smooths that roller coaster out is when your expectations are realistic. Then you're going to be okay. I expected this was going to be very hard. For example, expect that you're going to have a great deal of difficulty, and expect that it's going to take a lot longer, and expect you're not going to make as much revenue. When you set your expectations realistically, when the only thing that can happen is good. You exceed the expectations, and then you're pumped up, Chris. Oh, I wanted to hit 50,000 in revenue in my year 2 in my business. I hit 75. Next year I'm going to try and shoot for 100, and then I hit 200. You know what I mean? So you set these realistic expectations. Now imagine if you set the expectation for, I'm going to do 250,000, and you did 75,000. You're like, oh, this is a waste of my time. There's not enough money in this. You know what I mean, Chris?
Right.
So those are the 2 bits of advice I would tell you. Have a clear vision of where you're going, so that no obstacle and setback will stop you, and also manage your expectations so that they're realistic and that you can achieve them.
Wow, definitely. I mean, lowering your expectations, I think it's great, because I think, a lot of times you may have it, like I mentioned, our dreams and goals, and you can kind of get carried with TV or things that you see others may have. And, oh, I can get that, or I can do that, and we may not necessarily know how long it took that person to get to where they are. So taking, I guess I could say, baby steps, I guess, kind of help to like you said, to temper your expectations and to kind of just give yourself time to kind of grow into what you want to become, because it does take time, as you mentioned. Why is it important for individuals to follow their own dreams and not necessarily the dreams that their parents
Mhm.
friends or associates. I've heard you often say don't place your ladder on somebody else's wall. Could you explain what that means?
Yeah. So a good example is this. When I was entering my sophomore year in college, um, I had to matriculate. They call it. You had to pick a major, and so I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I asked my dad for advice, and my dad said, "Oh, get an accounting degree. If you become an accountant, you'll never starve." Well, that meant a lot to me back then, Chris, because we were poor, and although we didn't starve, we were always worried about being kicked out of our home and never had money, and we didn't even have a car for a couple of years there. It was just like we had a family of 11. How do you survive with a family of 11 without a car? We just didn't. So it meant a lot to me to I didn't. What he's really saying is at the very worst, you'll live a middle class upbringing, and so I looked at that and I said, well, I'm going to take my ladder and put it on my dad's wall. Well, I I can say this. I noticed probably sometime after I was 3 years after graduate school. I got my master's in tax. It was 3 years after that, and I said, you know what? I'm just not really happy with this career. I mean, I'm not making as much money as I want to make, and I think it's a career path that kind of you kind of capped out unless you go into one of these big firms and you give them you become a slave to them, and you sacrifice your family and your friends to them. The big accounting firms. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to live a life, and so I was a little bit unhappy, and that's because I put my ladder on my dad's wall. And so I stumbled into the rich habits, like I said. And what I was really doing, Chris, was taking my ladder and putting it on my wall.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, why is that so important? Because when you are pursuing your dreams and your goals, there's two types of energy that the brain feeds off of, that nourishes the brain, that gives the brain energy. The one is the one that everybody uses almost all the time. It's called willpower energy. That gives you the ability to focus for like 2 or 3 hours at a time, and it's fueled by glucose and rest. So when you wake up in the morning, you have probably the most willpower energy you'll have all day. You'll have probably 3 hours before you start getting tired, and then when you eat something, that glucose will nourish the brain, give it some more willpower energy. You'll have another hour or 2 hours, and then but here's the other one, the other energy. It's called emotional energy. Willpower energy comes from the neocortex, which is the most recent evolutionary part of the brain. The emotional energy comes from deep within the brain, in the emotional center of the brain, which is in the limbic system. That's been around millions and millions of years longer than the neocortex. Far more powerful than the neocortex. It can multitask. The subconscious, the limbic system and the brainstem, it can multitask. You can breathe and write at the same time. You don't have to say, I got to stop writing, I got to breathe. You know what I mean? And the conscious part of the brain, you can't hold on to two thoughts at the same time. It's impossible. You might say, oh, I can multitask. I'm a great multitasker. No, you're not. What you're good at is your neurons switching from one thing to another, but the same neuron can't do this, the same two different things. So I would say that the emotional energy is using this millions and millions of year old evolution of capability and this energy that resides from that shoots up from the emotional centers of the brain. And this kind of energy, this emotional energy, this is the energy that will allow you to do something for 12 hours a day, for 7 days a week, for 10 years. The willpower energy won't allow you to do that. You're going to have to take breaks. You're going to lose motivation. Emotional energy just keeps you going. It keeps you moving forward, and it keeps keeps you motivated. So I would say that those are those are the two reasons. Yeah.
You definitely know pursuing your own dream is just so important. And I think, of course, it's always pressure um, from, I guess, external sources. But I think, you're at your happiest when you're pursuing your dream and it's on your wall. I very, very fortunate to be able to pursue some goals that I had. Despite the challenges, you just have to keep moving forward until you pursue what is exactly right for you.
Right.
But Tom, with all of your success with your books, Rich Habits, what continues to motivate?
Love. I live in love every day, and I have a mission in deep in my heart to improve the lives of other people. I don't care. I really don't care about money. I could care less about money. I'll tell you, I write every day. I probably spend 4 hours a day on my Rich Habits research. Maybe I make between 100,000 or whatever with book sales and speaking gigs. Not that's not even half of the money that I make on the other businesses that I have. So it's not. I don't do it for money. It's love. I have a desire to add value to the lives of others. That's my legacy. I believe that we're put on this earth to love and to help other people. And I think if you make money doing that, great. That's just icing on the cake. But what wakes me up at 4:30 every morning, that's pretty much what I do. And go down to my basement and spend 2 hours reading and doing research on my Rich Habits stuff. Is love. I get a sense of enormous happiness and fulfillment when I'm writing articles that I believe are going to help people. And so I think what drives me is love of other people.
Yeah, I definitely can attest to it. I see your newsletter, and it's just amazing just the wealth of information that you pour out every day. It's just every day is just something new I see with your newsletter and all the other like I mentioned your books and your other interviews that you've done. And again, I just sincerely appreciate your work. And I know it's as I mentioned, I mean, we talked my email has transformed my life, and I'm just so honored to have this time and to spend with you. And how can our listeners get in contact with you and learn more about your books and your institute?
Yeah, they just have to go to richhabits.net. And, my books are really a one-stop shop. I consolidate all my research, and I might want to target something like Effortless Wealth was about the saver investor path to wealth. So I'll consolidate that all that research that is on my website. Now, you don't have to buy any of my books. You could read everything that's on my website. I have no advertisers. There's no pop-ups. I don't give a crap about money, about making money off of this stuff. You don't have to buy my books. I give it all away for free on my website. But the reason I write books is because it's hard, Chris, my research covers a huge scope of the personal development area. And you could spend a week trying to find the information that you need, for whatever you're trying to, need help on. So I come up with the different books, the different themes that I think are important for people, like Rich Habits, and then how to change your habits, how to change your habits, change your life. So I wrote that book. That's the science behind habit change. And then Rich Kids really was written, the self-made millionaires in my study were taught certain things by their parents. So I wanted to get that out there. Mm-hmm. Right. What are the rich people that are self-made millionaires, what did their parents teach them? That's important information, right? So I wanted to isolate that. And then effortless wealth, like I said, it was just the saver investor path. I have research on the saver investor path, the entrepreneur path, the virtuoso path, and the big company climber path. I have all this research out there. So I needed to target that particular effortless wealth is really for the people who aren't going to be a big company climber, aren't going to take those risks that are required by an entrepreneur. They don't have, they're not a virtuoso in anything. They're just the average Joe, really. So I wrote that book for the average person who wants to become a millionaire on a regular salary. So, so that's where richhabits.net, that'll give you everything you need. And and then of course you can email me at tom@richhabits.net.
Well, definitely, Tom. I mean, I can't say enough, but I'd just like to say thank you for your time and all that you've done and all that you're continuing to do, because you've impacted so many people, including myself. So just so honored that you could spend time with us on the overcoming challenges in the 4 phases of life interview series. And thank you again, Tom.
Well, it was my pleasure, and it's an honor. Thank you for valuing what I do. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.